Hello there. My name is Father Ed Nadonley from the Father Nadonley Good News Fund. And we'd like to have you as a guest. So you could call us at 860-321-7405. And whatever topic you'd like to talk about, we'd love to discuss it, because I have an answer for everything. But right before the show, I was talking to Don and the other fellows about the virus, the coronavirus. And everybody's running around buying masks. And according to the authorities, that's not a good thing to do, because the mask won't prevent you from getting some droplets. But if you're interested in more information about should you be running around buying masks all over the place, and that article, look under coronavirus and masks, and you'll be really surprised that the mask can be harmful to you instead of helpful to you. And so those who have the sickness should wear masks. But those who do not have the sickness should not do, because it may be influential in your catching the droplet and catching the coronavirus. So look it up when you get a chance. Like, I've been working in the hospital for the last 6 months. But today I put the mask on about 5 or 6 times. I did it because the person I was going to visit had the flu. So I was conscious of the fact that I needed to cover my mouth and my nose with a mask so that I wouldn't catch the flu. But with the coronavirus, it's just the opposite. The mask may end up being an occasion, a source for you catching the coronavirus. So look it up. Look it up and do a study. And type in coronavirus and masks. That's what I did just before the show, because Don had told me about it. But it was very interesting to realize we're kind of panicking and everybody's running around buying a mask. But the mask may be an assistant to for you getting the coronavirus. But we look at it in different ways. But that medical explanation was very interesting, that the mask may be a help for you to get the coronavirus and not a preventive one. But if you have the coronavirus, then you should have the mask on if you're going to the doctor or so forth. So if you look it up during the show, call me back at 860-321-7405. Over the last, now Lent has started, so we're talking about Lent. And what are we going to do for Lent today? Well, it depends on you. Some people give up candy, give up drinking, give up soda, give up all kind of things so they could lose weight. But the purpose of Lent is not to lose weight, and not to bring down your blood pressure, not to bring down your cholesterol. That's all self-centered. That's helpful. But the emphasis of Lent should not be on self-centered, but it should be on others. So also, a Lent should also be on a spiritual Lent, and not just a physical and food Lent. And everybody says, well, I'll look good at Easter time when I put on, I'll lose 40 pounds. But I'm asking you not to lose weight, but I'm asking you to put on the weight, spiritual weight with the Lord. And how do you put on spiritual weight? Well, you do it this way. Well, fast from pride. Are you a proud person? Fast from pride. Feast on humility. Fast from greed. And feast on simplicity. I was talking to someone today in the hospital. I've been working in the hospital, and this person works in the financial department for the state. And I said, how are we going to handle all our tremendous bills, billions of dollars that we have in the red? And she says, cut back. Then she told me about one of the governors whose chief of staff was getting over $100,000. And just before the governor moved on, he appointed him the head of commissioner of education. Now he's getting $400,000. Now he's going to get $400,000 for three years. And that's going to build up his pension and retirement So he'll be getting over $250,000 for a pension. And who's paying for it? You. You who's watching this show right now. So we're talking about fasting from greed and feasting on simplicity. Fasting from being impatient and feasting on patience. Fasting from being judgmental and feasting on being complimentary. Fasting from being political and condemning that other political party, and feasting on recognizing your opposition, that they're both children of God. Fasting from laziness and feasting on being creative. Fasting from TV and feast on reading. Fasting from drinking and feasting on sobriety. Fasting from drugs and feasting on non-drugs. Fasting about being selfish and feasting on being selfless. Yes, there are so many wonderful Lenten penances and fasting that you could do. And the other element of Lent is that of praying. Praying really is currency, or rather, listening really is currency for building up a relationship. Again, let me repeat that. Listening is currency that you have to pay for to build up a relationship. Today I was in a hospital and I walked into a room and there was a person over 90 years old, and he recognized me. He saw my picture on post office with a number under it. No, he recognized me from television, probably from this show. And he was very upset that he was 90 years old and he's got a wife that is got dementia and she's going blind. And he was so angry with God that how could God do that? Where was God? How could he allow my wife of 63 years to end up blind and with dementia? That's tough to answer, so I spent maybe 10 minutes just listening to him, telling me how hurt he was, that he noticed he was in the hospital, so he had a problem, but he was much more concerned about his wife's dementia and her going blindness. Yes, he fasted on selfishness and feasted on the other person. And how do you answer a person? How could there be a God to allow such suffering? All his life, he's been married over 60 years. How could God allow that to happen? Now, if you have an answer, give me a call at 860-321-7405. That's 860-321-7005. 860-321-7405. So I'm no theologian, I'm no saint. The only thing I could answer to him was, Jesus knows your suffering. He allows your suffering. And he is in the midst of suffering. Jesus doesn't cause your suffering. Jesus doesn't bypass your suffering. Jesus is in the midst of your suffering. He is present in your suffering. So your suffering isn't just human suffering. It is also divine suffering. So when I left, the man had a smile on his face. But the reason he had a smile on his face was because prayer is listening, and that's your currency for having a relationship. So there was a prayer relationship going on, even though we weren't saying prayers like that. I was listening. And that's the currency. That's the money you have to pay if you're going to have a relationship. I never knew that guy. that person, I'll never probably see him again, unless he stays for some more days in the hospital. But we build up a relationship, and we build that up by listening. So if you have a question on a coronavirus, I'm no authority. I got a wonderful comment from Don before the show, saying the mask is not a help, but it could be a hindrance for you, from you staying safe from coronavirus. So the topic of Lenten is, one is fasting. Now, a lot of people be giving up candy, giving up smoking, giving up drinking, and then come Easter, they blow it all and they start all over again. But the purpose of Lent is not to just go 40 days without doing something. The purpose of Lent is to have 40 days to get in shape, to continue to do something with Easter, in Easter, and after Easter. Again, if you have a call, give me a call at 860-321-7405. So we talked about the prayer, we talked about the fasting, we talked about almsgiving. When you read Scripture, that's what you have, the almsgiving. Oh, we got a phone call coming. Father Ed, you're on the air.
Yes, Father.
Yes, Mother.
What's your theme tonight? I don't want to be way off base.
One of my themes, we're talking about Lent a little, prayer, fasting, and I'm just getting on almsgiving. And also, the other topic was the coronavirus that I just found out a little while ago, right before the show. I read the article that the mask is not a help. The mask may be a way of you getting the coronavirus, because you don't get it through the air. You get it through droplings and moisture and touch. So like in the church now, where we have the sign of peace, but we don't touch each other. And keeping your hands washed all the time, like I do when I go in the hospital. Every room I go into, I have to foam. And when I go into another room, I have to foam. So we're talking about the coronavirus. We're talking about Lent. Now, what are you talking about?
Well, I've been noticing, I have in front of me maybe like about 5 different church bulletins. And the mission statements from different churches, they're more welcoming. It's like, here's one that says, we are a welcoming, loving, growing family called by Christ to share experience and celebrate God's presence and loving redemption. All right. And then I'm also noticing that it's no matter what your present status in the Catholic Church, no matter your current family or marital situation, no matter your personal history, age, income, background, gender, race, they go on and on and on and on. They seem to be all-inclusive. So now, is this something new? They're reaching out because have changes been made in some of the laws,
Well, I think we're just getting back to our original meaning when you said one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. Catholic means universal. So that means everybody is welcome. I'll give you an example today. I was in a hospital, and I came into the room, and the first thing I do is anoint people with the sacrament of the sick. And then I ask them if they'd like to go to communion. Then I count them into going to confession. Then I give them communion. Now, this lady was married 38 years, and her first marriage lasted 7 years. So she felt very alienated from the church. And all I can say, well, what would Jesus do? Here you are, you've been married for 38 years, you've got 2 nice kids, grown kids, grown adults rather, and what do you think God would want? So we talked about bringing her back to church. I gave her the anointing of the sick, and that's a sacrament because she was sick. And then we talked about bringing her back to the church through the way of annulment. And she said, well, could I go to confession? And I said, of course you can go to confession. So if you really are Catholic, you really got to be a universal. And universal means the doors are open to everyone. You're welcome to everyone. Now, unfortunately, over the years, we have these ethnic parishes, French, Italian, German, Polish, etc. And they were very ethnic and very parochial, but they weren't Catholic. They weren't inviting people of other nationalities. But that has grown where the doors are opened up to everyone, so everybody is welcome. So I would say, in one sense, you're right. It's a new idea. It's a new idea that's been around for 2,000 years, but hasn't been executed, where people became very, very parochial and their nationality, and they identify their church with the nationality and not with Catholic. So it's Italian church, an Irish church. They didn't call it a Catholic church. They said an Irish church or an Italian church or Polish church. And you're right. Even though it's been around for over 2,000 years, I think with the changes in the church, the vast changes in the church, changing attendance and so forth, there's billboards around Connecticut, right, saying, "Come home, you're welcome. Welcome to our church." So yeah, that is new, even though it's old. Catholic's been around for almost 2,000 years. The word Catholic, and when through the Roman influence, the Roman Empire, the influence came there. But yeah, you're right. It is new, but yet it's very old.
And the thing and staying with that point too is, like, I know in one church they have like what they call a men's personal growth group, and who leads it? But a licensed psychologist and professional counselor. That's new.
Oh yeah, because psychology we never really got into before, and if a person committed suicide, that was a terrible, terrible sin. But now we saw it's a sin. It's not a sin. It's a sickness. So as psychiatry has grown, so the church has grown with psychiatry. And in that sense, it is new to help men become mature men. And in order to become a mature man, you also have to become morally and emotionally and psychologically mature. We can't just have one area developing a person psychologically and emotionally. You also have to develop spiritually to be a whole person. And I think that's part of the presentation of those people who are leading those groups, that they are helping a person handle some of the emotional problems, but also realize that emotional problems really are a reflection of spiritual problems. So that's a great idea. That is something new. I think I'm going to switch churches and go down to your church, down the street. Any other comments there? That's good.
Well, all right. Now, how about, did you do your, what Pope Francis is saying for fasting? Fast from hurting words and say kind words?
Oh, yeah. I just had that fasting from pride, feasting on humility, fasting from being judgmental, feast on being complimentary. Yeah, I think the Pope stole that idea from me, but don't tell him that. I was
don't have copyright on it, right?
Yeah, right. I was talking to people just before you called that we're all hung up on fasting from food and drinking. Well, that's all self-centered. You want to lose weight, like I'm fasting from desserts, unless people put it in front of me, and I don't want to hurt their feelings, so I eat it. But today I didn't take any dessert because I had the freedom to say no to myself. But out of charity, many times you should say, even though you gave up something, but to please the person that's serving you, whether it's a glass of wine or whether it's a dessert or whether it's ice cream or something. Like somebody took me out to lunch, one of my old parishioners, and she says, "Oh, Father, you gotta have to have dessert." Now, she didn't have any dessert, but I know she would be pleased if I had the dessert. So a Lenten penance sometimes is eating something you really don't want to eat to please the other person. But if you just stay away from food to lose weight, well, that's self-centered. But if you fast for the sake of or don't fast for the sake of the other person, I think that's very, very healthy. Yes, so we're talking about fasting, and the Pope, we got to pray for the Pope. He's got a cold. I hope he doesn't have a virus, and the coronavirus. But I was just telling the people before you called that there's an excellent article that masks are not going to prevent you from getting the coronavirus. It may be a way of getting the coronavirus. I just tapped in coronavirus and mask, and it really was an eye-opener. Everybody's running around buying masks for, but they could be a doorway to make it easier for you to get the coronavirus, because it's a Doppler. The big thing is don't touch anybody. Stay away from touching. And over at the churches announced during the sign of peace, just wave at each other or smile at each other, but don't touch each other. So getting back to your fasting, spiritual fasting, I say you're trying to lose weight physically, but put on weight spiritually by fasting from sin and selfishness, and put on weight that will bring you close, spiritual weight that bring you closer to Christ. So I'm not so much about fasting from food, but I'm losing weight, but putting on spiritual weight and getting very closer to Christ during the Lenten season. I'm going to have a drink of water while you're talking. What's the other question?
Well, I just saw it. Also, thank you for that Lenten Blessing Await, the book by Father Sika. You know, you mailed out to over 2,000. Oh,
yeah, but that's, by the way, if anybody wants that book, it's really a good booklet. You can call me during the show or after the show. Call me at 860-321-2407 for the book or question.
It's a booklet. Could you tell them what it's about? It's a booklet that helps them to follow, has a little reading for each day of Lent.
Okay. Have you got got the booklet there near you right now?
Yes.
Well, could you pick out today's date? What's today, the 2nd of March?
Okay, one moment, please.
Take your time, but work fast. We don't have much time in the show. It only goes 5 hours. So if you could...
See your pain. Excuse me. I see your pain.
Nice and long.
When did we see you hungry or thirsty or a stranger or naked or sick or in prison and didn't take care of you? All right, that was the reading from Matthew.
Yeah.
Every one of us knows someone who is going through a difficult time right this very minute. For some, it takes real effort to put one foot in front of the other. They feel desperate and alone. This Lent, we can enter their world, see their pain, and respond with eyes of empathy. Empathy at its best starts when we put ourselves in others' shoes. We are offered the opportunity to see the world through another's eyes and bridge the gap between us. Rather than writing someone off, our empathy provides a healing balm that shows we are sensitive to what they are experiencing. So, do you want to make life easier for someone? Offer to take care of your sister's kids for the weekend and give her a break. Have dinner with newly widowed neighbor. Buy groceries for someone who's lost their job.
That's good. Go ahead.
So that's just a part of it.
All right. And by the way, if anybody wants that, what's the name of the book again?
All right, hold on. Lenten Blessings Await.
Lenten Blessings Await. I have about 500 extra copies, so we gave out 200. I've given them out at the hospital, and I've given them out to people at the seminary, but I still do have about 400 left. So if anybody want them, just call us and give us your name and telephone number. You don't have to give us your Social Security number or your credit card number. Just call us at 860-321-7407. Or you can call me after the show with my home number, 860-335-2342. 860-335-2342 after the show. And that's my cell number. Or my home number, 860-761-7428. 860-761-7428. Don't call me now, but call me after the show, okay? And thank you. Any other thoughts for this wonderful audience we have?
Oh, let's see here. Maybe a joke might do. Hold on. All right, you know how the churches have their bulletins and with all the announcements in?
Yeah.
All right, well, this time I think the typist got a little mixed up. So it goes like this. The sermon this morning, Jesus walks on the water. The sermon tonight, searching for Jesus.
Say that again. First, say that slowly.
The sermon this morning is entitled, Jesus Walks on the Water.
Yeah.
The sermon tonight, Searching for Jesus.
Oh, searching for Jesus. Okay. He drowned. You're searching.
Okay, that one went over like a lead balloon. All right.
Yeah, that was good.
Let's try another one. All right. For those of you who have children and don't know it, we have a nursery downstairs.
Oh, for the children or for them? Okay. Well, I walked into the room a couple of days ago, and I usually give them gifts. I give them a rosary. I give them my card, my business card with my name and prayer on it, and I give them a picture of Jesus and Mary, and I give them a cross. So I walk in with these little goodies when I walk into the room. This way I figure break
Going to the hospital. You're talking about going into the room in the hospital.
Yeah, going into the patient's room.
Gotcha.
So I walk into a patient's room, and I give the person my card, and they look at, and they said, "Father Nadali, are you still alive?" And you're laughing. That wasn't very funny, but that wasn't that bad. But
I like it.
But the other one that got me, this was an elderly nurse that was there. I think she was there when I was a patient there a long time ago. And I walk in, and she looks at the card, and she said, "Are you still around?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm not that around." But I told her when I was young, I was good looking. Now I'm just looking good. But when I go into, it's interesting. Well, I got to tell you a funny story. It was the last patient in the hospital and I was really tired. You know, at 87, I'm closer to the tomb than I am to the womb. I was really tired, and I looked at the thing. There was one left, and it was getting late, and I want to go home. But then I said, nah, because I'm obsessive compulsive when it comes to patients. I couldn't get into the room because the doctor was taking a test. And he said, "Father, you can't come in." I said, "What do you mean? You can't come in because we're taking tests." So I'm looking at the clock, and I'm tired. I really want to go to bed. And I said, "I'll sit down." So I sat down at the nurse's station, and 5 minutes goes by, so I'm saying some prayers, and I'm looking at my emails, eating up time. So I said, "You idiot, what are you sitting here for one person?" So I honestly must have sat there about 15 minutes. And finally the doctor said, you can come in now, Father. So I look at the list, and the woman's 92 years old. I said, "She's 92. She's older than I am, and that's old." So I said, well, I walk in, and I give her my card, and she recognizes my voice, and she starts yelling and screaming, "Father Nadali, Father Ed, I've been waiting for you all my life." And her daughter's sitting there saying, Ma, settle down, settle down. And she was like, I was like a Bing Crosby or a Bob Feller or somebody. And she went on, and she got all excited. She was completely bald. Then she turns around and says, "I want a picture with you." So I said, okay. So she says to her daughter, "Give me my wig back." So here's a 92-year-old woman putting the wig back on, and we're taking a picture. So that's who I can relate to. You got to be over 90 for people to remember that I'm still alive. But I said to myself, boy, God, that was really worth the time. The joy that I brought her and the joy that she brought me when she got all excited after I heard the one saying, "Are you still around?" And then the other one said, "Are you still alive?" So the times in the hospital are really interesting. But thank you very much for the input that you mentioned. And give me the name of that book again, booklet again, that people may want.
Okay, Lenten Blessings Await.
Lenten Blessings Await. Okay, yeah, that goes with today's gospel. When were you hungry? When were you thirsty? When were you in prison? When were you sick? And whatever you do to the least of my brethren, you do to me. Good, that's good. Okay, thanks a lot for calling.
You're welcome. Good night now.
Good night. All right, if anyone else would like to call in, it was a very interesting conversation with a young lady who's brought up a lot of interesting projects and problems and ideas. So if you have a comment on any of the programs so far, we're talking about Lent, we're talking about fasting, we're talking about prayer, we're talking about coronavirus. What about politics? Today I just heard that two people dropped out of the Democratic race. One was Klobuchar, and the other was, I can't pronounce his last name, Mitzowicz. And both of them, one of them said they're going with Biden, and then there was a contradictory statement. One said that the other fellow, Mr. B, was going with Sanders, and then another newscast said that he was going with Sanders. He was going with Biden. So Klobuchar is going with Biden, and the other one, I'm not sure who he's going with. One article had him going with Biden, another one, a newscast had him going with Sanders. But where are you going? If you're a Democrat, where are you going? Who do you think? It'll be Bloomberg, Biden, and Sanders. They call them the three old men. You know, all of them are closer to the tomb than they are to the womb. Not as bad as I am, but it's interesting that people want old people a sign of security, and not young people. Like Warren, I think she's going with Sanders, but she's not a get it. But the other young ones got knocked out. And it's interesting, we want older people. I think we're looking for a grandfather or grandmother more than we want a president. We want some grandfather. But what do you think? Right now, tonight, we see two of them, got Mr. B and also Ms. K. Klobuchar. Two of them have pulled away. What is your feeling? If you're a Democrat, if you're the Republicans, what's your feeling? Call me at 860-321-7428. That's 860-321-7428. No, wait a minute. 860-321-7405. 7405. 860-321-7405. I'm thinking of my own telephone number. So give me your idea. What's your thought on who you think should be the Democratic presidential candidate and why? Is it Biden? Is it Bloomberg? Is it Sanders? Which would you pick? And who do I think is going to win the Democratic presidential candidate? I'll tell you after the election. I'll tell you who I feel is going to win the slot to be the next Democratic presidential candidate. 860-321-7405 is our telephone number. So we talked about Lent, we talked about coronavirus, we talked about a little about politics, and what would you like to talk about? Well, one thing I like to talk about, I always like to talk about, by the way, if you'd like to call, just call 860-321-7405. And here are just some simple thoughts during Lent. These are Lenten thoughts that I brought to you. There is an eternal gift of life that Jesus offers all of us. And I want to stop just on this. I've been studying the controversial contraceptive pill, U485. It's got another name. In other words, you take it immediately after you find yourself pregnant. And it's supposed to be the cure-all. You won't have to worry about being pregnant because the abortion takes place right away within a few days. But then I was looking at some of the side effects, like depression, bleeding, and I saw 10 different side effects that can cause, if you take that pill, which is supposed to destroy any type of life with the potential of becoming fully human. So there's an eternal gift of life that God, Jesus, offers all of us. And my question is, this is a gift from God. Now, why is it that over 40 million children have been aborted? And what do you think is the cause of this? And what blew my mind, more than 50% of the children that are aborted by couples that are married are living together. It's not a one-night stand where a girl gets pregnant, then she has an abortion. I remember a 16-year-old girl came up to me one day and said, Father, she was brought in by a couple who just had an abortion, and they went crazy. And they brought her in, and I said, well, do you want to have an abortion? And she said, no. I said, well, go home, tell your mother, and I'm sure she'll, because you're her daughter, she'll love her. She loves you. She went home on a Thursday night, and I called the family on a Saturday night, and the mother said she's going to go have an abortion next week. Why is it that we don't respect life? You know, when I'm on this TikTok program, and one boy called me up very, very, very upset. He says, I go to a Christian school, I think it was Texas, and they're going to throw me out because I'm a gay. And the boy was very upset. And someone thinks that you could change a person's sexuality. You can change a person's behavior, but you can't change a person's sexuality. Because once that egg and once that sperm come together, you have your unique individual DNA, and then you're going to go one way or the other, either heterosexual or homosexual. And I told a young boy, I said, no, that's the way you were born. And God loves you just the way you are. And I get a lot of calls from kids. That TikTok, I have kids 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 calling. I had a call from England. I said, come on. But it did come from England. I got a call from California, and I said, well, I'm on the East Coast, but you're too far to fly to. And he had a question on homosexuality. Another one just called me and had a question on vaping. And I said, if you smoke cigarettes, you get cancer. If you smoke marijuana, eventually you get cancer. If you're vaping, if you stay long enough, your lungs will be run. And now don't be surprised if you get cancer. It's too early to tell. But you can't put smoke inside of you without damaging the lungs. But the question is, God guides our minds. There is an eternal gift of life that Jesus offers all of us. Now, if you believe that God gives you that gift, he's the creator of you, why is it that every 40 seconds somebody commits suicide? Every 40 seconds someone commits suicide. Every 18 seconds, 3 people overdose with drugs. You realize we lost 1,200 people last year from an overdose of drugs? Now, that's just 1 year. Just go back 10 years. Imagine how many families are without their husbands or their daughters or their wives or nephews or sons, whatever it may be. You know, we're talking about 10 years. I'm sure it's way over 5,000. As 5,000 families don't have any children because drugs took their lives. I work in Walker Prison. You told me, I told you that's my favorite parish because nobody comes in late and nobody leaves early. They don't want to go back to their cells. But when I asked them, they all belong there, but none of them belong there. I remember talking to a fellow who said, do you know who I am? I said, no, I don't. And he told me he was the one that killed a priest in Forestville in St. Matthews. He says, I'm schizophrenic. I went to shelter, I couldn't get in. I went to see Father Jengris, but he wasn't in. I didn't have my medication. I started hallucinating, and I thought Father was getting people to kill me. So I took a candlestick, and I tried to knock him out, and I killed him. Did he do it? Yes. He got 60 years. 60 years. But if he had the medication, he wouldn't have done it. So yes, he does belong there. But if he had the medication, he wouldn't be there. So when Jesus, life is a gift, and we see so many people committing suicide now, they think that their life is theirs. No, your life is just lent to you for a while. Your life is but a dash. A time you're born, a time you die. And compare that with eternity. It's just a drop of water in the ocean of eternity. And that life is so precious. And God dwells in you. So my question to you, why do people take their own life when it really isn't their life? It's God's life living in their life. Why do people take their own life? 860-321-7405. Okay, God guides our minds as we think things out in His presence. You know, if anybody really believed every decision that you make, you're not making it alone only, but you're making it in God's presence. I like to do a holy hour in church sometimes, especially when I'm thinking about a sermon the next day. And when you sit in God's presence, then your mind is going in one direction. But if you're not aware of God's presence in your life, your mind can go into any direction. But if you don't have a spiritual foundation, then your mind can go into any direction. But with a spiritual foundation, your mind will go in the right direction. There's no question. When I'm in prison, I ask the guys, how is it you're going to be out of 7 out of 10 of you are going to be back in prison. 3 of you out of 10 will not come back. And so naturally, I said, what are the words that you'd use? And they said, faith, hope, love. Those are theological virtues. Job, and change your environment. Yes, unless you start thinking in a Christ-like way, a religious way, they're going to be back in a very short time. And I've been there long enough where I've seen fellows who've gone and have come back in less than a year. And 7 out of 10 of them will come back within 5 years. And basically because they don't follow what they preach. Faith, hope, love, change environment, and try to get a job. And one thing I find out that we should do something about our bond system. A lady stole $103 worth of clothing. They bring her to court. She doesn't have the bond, so she's put in jail for 3 months. Another guy who's a rapist, or Lupos as an example, or Weinstein, for example, or Epstein, for example. They could come up with the bond money, and they've done such terrible things, while this lady stole some clothing for her grandchildren, and she was in prison for 3 months. We should have bail-free, financially free. And where it does, when you have a small, somebody's done a small crime and can't come up with the bond money because they're poor, they wouldn't be stealing if they weren't poor. 93% of those people come back to court when they're bond-free. The bondmen won't like that because they make their money. But it's not fair to put a woman in prison for 3 months on $103 clothing, while other people who commit murder, who are like the lady with Lupos, and she's out on bail, $2.5 million bail. Or the lawyer, I guess he can't make bail. But I think we should look at our bail system. If we're thinking about people who commit a crime that doesn't deserve to be in prison because they can't come up with a bail. How do you feel about that? 860-321-7405. Yes, God guards our minds if we allow Him to guard them. But if you don't allow God to guard your mind, then you're going to go in any direction. Faith can save you to go in peace. You know, you really can't have peace unless there's faith. Unless there's faith, there's not going to be any peace. Unless there's faith, there's not going to be peace or justice. Those three go together. Faith, peace, and justice. And when I think about the injustice that you and I are paying taxes, so some fella can retire and get $200,000 in retirement and build up his retirement in the last 3 years. What really upsets me many times is when I sit down with policemen and they are working 7 days a week, overtime, over 3 years to build up their retirement. While somebody else who's in the business world, working as a secretary or working in a factory, and doesn't have the opportunity to build up, and yet he's the one who's got a $10,000 retirement, who's paying for the guy in the government who's getting a $250,000, and we're paying for that retirement. Yes, when we talk about peace and justice, and there is no peace where there's no justice, and there's no justice unless there is faith. Let's see what time it is. I just got a few more minutes left, so if anybody would like to call me at 860-321-7405. 860-321-7405. The peace of God, which transcends all understandings, will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. You know, God is peace. And you take God out of that, we have no peace. We talk about peace now with the Taliban in Afghanistan, and we're hoping that there will be a peace treaty. But only if God is at the basis of that peace, that you respect God, who is the beginning and end of all peace, that these peace treatments or treaties are going to last, unless you have a spiritual foundation. We are called under a Judeo-Christian society, but I don't believe we are that way anymore. We are in really a financial, materialistic, self-centered society. It's all about me and my cell phone. But if we're going to have the peace of God transcends everything. The peace of God enters every peace contract with countries. But leave out God, then you don't have a strong foundation for peace. Do not fear, for he is always with you. And that came to me very clearly today. I was in a hospital, and I walked into a room, and a lady says, "Father, I'm going to be leaving. I don't have any fear, because God is with me all the time." And Jesus said, "I'm with you always until the end of the world." This woman had a great, great peace on her, a peaceful look on her face, because she says, God is with me all the time, and it's impossible for me to live without God. Then there's another room I went to. It was my last one a couple of days ago, and the guy's name was John, and there was somebody, some social worker, getting to bring him to hospice, and he was dying. And a wife was there, and the daughter was there, and the wife had a friend, a woman who was with her. So I didn't know what I was getting into, but it looked as if it was pretty serious. So I walked in, and I gave my rosary, I gave my card, I gave my cross, I gave a nice picture of Jesus and Mary. And then I started talking to them. And after the social worker left, I said to the mother and the daughter, "Can I talk to you?" Now, I had never seen them before. I anointed the fellow with the sacrament of the sick. But then I asked the mother and the daughter to come out of the patient's room. And I said, "Are you afraid? Do not fear, for he is with you always." I says, "Are you afraid? And have you said, let him know that it's okay for him to go to heaven? Have you told him that he could let go of us, and we're willing to let go of him because we love him? Because the type of life that he has right now and the life that he's going to have when he graduates to heaven is going to be completely different." And I was pleasantly surprised when the daughter and the wife said, "No, we're ready to let him go to heaven. And we don't fear what's going to happen to him, but we fear what's happening to him right now. The cancer that's all through his throat. And the fear of the Lord isn't one to be afraid of the Lord. The fear of the Lord means to be in awe of the Lord and in awe of God's presence in your life. And I really felt that that patient's room was a little chapel of suffering. And the mother and the daughter were suffering with the father and the husband. But they were willingly, because of love, they're willing to let him go. For his sake, not for they didn't want him to go. For their sake. But for his sake, they had no fear. He was a good man, and he'd be going to heaven. So when you look at fear, you can look at it something to be, I have a book called Starving Your Fears. Fears of going out at night, a fear of crowds, a fear of what people will say of you. Yes, when you're very insecure, I have somebody, when they got married, only she and the groom and the maid of honor and the best man were there because she can't stand crowds. That's that kind of fear, you need to starve those fears. Like I told her, the things you worry about today, you won't be worrying about tomorrow, so why worry about it? Instead of being filled with fear, be filled with concern. The terminology you use. So when you look at fear, it could be a very negative thing. Fear could be a very positive thing. The fear of the Lord is being in awe of the Lord. When you look at the sunset, or you look at the stars tonight, you see, and boy, you're filled with fear. You're filled with awe of God's presence and God's creation. My sheep hear my voice, says the Lord. I know them, and they follow me. You know, how many people really listen to the Lord? My sheep hear my voice. How often do you really hear God's voice? Do you hear his voice in the suffering of others? Do you hear a voice in the cry of a baby? Do you hear his voice and somebody just got a divorce? Do you hear his voice in somebody in agony? Like the man who was in agony today and with an operation. Do you hear his voice when you have a wonderful thought to do something kind? Yes, do you really hear his voice? And you have to be able to listen. Remember, listening is the currency you pay to have a relationship with somebody. So how often do you listen? How often do you pray? Well, I'd like to end this wonderful conversation today. Remember, if you'd like to call me after the show at 860-335-2342. We'll send you that wonderful book Sister talked about. In the meantime, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, a Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. God bless you, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon. Good night.